Morning, and welcome to Northwest, a Unitarian Universalist congregation. My name is Eva Leventer. I am the acting director of the religious education here at Northwest and your worship associate for this morning's service. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. Our interim director is Reverend Kevin DeBeck. Our in-person and Zoom participants are the Partham family and Jim Moyer. Pre-recorded music and words by Colin Variest and Oliver Kinnan. Choir director and video editor Ken Hermanat. Pianist Alex Myers. Zoom host Kathy Henry. AV tech and sound tech Alex Myers and Ken Hermanat. And congregational minister Ben Gable. This will be a multi-generational service. This year marks the 55th anniversary of the debut of the Grinch Who Stole Christmas on television. Reverend Kevin DeBeck will discuss how the Grinch's redemption speaks to us all even now. If you're a visitor here and would like to stay in touch, please fill out the visitor form you will see in the chat box. The chat feature has been disabled, except for the chatting directly with the tech host. If you're having problems with Zoom, use the chat function or raise hand function in Zoom. You're encouraged to change your pronouns on Zoom. To change your name, click on the participants button at the top of Zoom. Next, hover your mouse over your name in the participants list on the right side of the Zoom window and click on Rename. Now for our announcements. Today, after the service, we will have our holiday tailgate party from 12 to 2. We are going to be having fires and soups and treats, roasting marshmallows, bird feeder making, and cookie decorating and singing. And this is also a chance you can pick up your candles and cookies for the candlelight service tonight. Speaking of which, tonight we will be having our candlelight service at 6 p.m. and we hope you can join us. It'll be live streamed and on Zoom from Northwest UU. Lessons and Carols is our Christmas Eve service on Zoom with Reverend Kevin DeBeck, and that's at 5 o'clock. You can connect with our pastoral care team, and their names are listed on the screen, and Kevin DeBeck is available. Our Board of Governors has some leadership positions available. Constitution and Bylaws Committee is looking for 1 position, Leadership Development 2 positions, and Memorial Garden Committee. And you can contact Jan Berger-Cohn if you're interested. Our Fire of Commitment capital campaign will be launched Sunday, January 9th, 2022, where during the service, we will present the Fire Commitment video, and in it you'll learn about the founder's vision of this church and the work along the way to build it. There will also be a couple of events, social events, Friday, January 14th and Sunday, January 16th, so look for those. Our plate collection today is going to 50% plate collection to Michigan UU Social Justice Network. And our special plate collection is going to the Southfield Emergency Needs Fund for gift cards. And you can follow, let's see. Yeah, so those are the plate collections. Thank you.
Here we go. All right, you're on. Go ahead.
A Spark of Hope by Melanie Davis. If ever there were a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. So every year at Christmas, me and Mommy make an ornament, and this year we made a penguin ornament. And also every year we make a gingerbread house, and this year we made a gingerbread house that looks like a farm.
Is Santa here?
Go see, go see. Did
Oh,
Santa bring
anything in your stockings?
Did Santa bring you a present?
Oh,
Anything in your stockings?
all the stockings is filled up too. Ooh, hey.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Ha ha ha, bells of bobtail ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to laugh and sing a merry song tonight.
Let us cultivate boundless goodwill. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none in anger or ill will wish another harm. Even as a mother watches over her child, so with boundless mind should one cherish all living beings, radiating friendliness all over the world, above, below, and all around without limit.
Let there be light, let there be understanding, let all the nations gather, let them be face to face. Open our lips, open our minds to ponder, open the door of concord, opening into grace. Perish the sword, perish the angry judgment, perish the bombs and hunger, perish the fight for gain. Let there be light, open our hearts to wonder, perish the way of terror, hallow the world God made.
The frog who wanted to be a singer, a boogie-woogie tale. Friends, let's go back to the forest, back to the motherland, back to the days when animals talked and walked upon the earth as folks do now. Let's examine a little creature who was feeling mighty bad, mighty sad, mighty frustrated. We call him the frog. There's nothing wrong in being a frog, but this particular frog feels that he has talent. You see, he wants to be a singer. And there's nothing wrong in wanting to be a singer, except in this particular forest where this particular frog lives, frogs don't sing. Only the birds are allowed to sing, and the birds are considered the most beautiful singers in the forest. So for a while, Frog is cool. He's quiet. He stays to himself and practices on his lily pad, jumping up and down, singing to himself. But one day, all this frustration starts to swell inside him. He becomes so swollen that frustration bubbles start popping from his mouth, his ears, his nose, even from his eyes. And he says to himself, you know, I'm tired of feeling this way. I'm tired of holding this all up inside me. I've got talent. I want to be a singer. The little frog decides to share his ambitions with his parents. His parents are somewhat worried about his desires, but since he is their son, they encourage him and say, son, we're behind you 100%. If that's what you want to be, then you go right ahead. You'll make us very proud. This makes the frog feel very better. It gives him some confidence, so much that he decides to share the good news with his friends. He jumps over to the other side of the pond and he says, fellas, I want to share something with you. Good. Have you got flies we can eat? No, not flies. I got talent. I want to be a singer. Fool, are you crazy? Frogs don't sing in this place. You better keep your big mouth shut. They laugh at the frog, so he jumps back over to his lily pad. He rocks back and forth, meditating and contemplating his situation, and begins to realize that perhaps he should go and talk with the birds. They seem reasonable enough. Maybe they will allow him to join their singing group. He gathers up his confidence and he jumps over to their treehouse and knocks on their trunk. The head bird flies to the window, looks down on the frog's head. Oh, it's Frog! How may we help you? Can I come up? I got something to ask you. Very well, Frog, do jump up. Frog enters the treehouse, and the birds begin fluttering around him. Come on in, Frog. Why don't you sit over there in the corner? Frog sits down, but he feels a little shy. He begins to chew on his tongue. Frog, how can we help you? Well, you see, I would like to become part of your group. Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, wonderful. Frog, you can help us carry the worms. That's not what I had in mind. Well, what do you have in mind? I want to sing with your group. What? You must be joking. An ugly green frog who's full of warts sing with us delicate creatures. You would cause us great embarrassment. But Frog tries to plead his case, but the head bird gets angry. Out! Out! Out of our house you go! He kicks the frog from the house, and Frog rolls like a ball down the jungle path. When he returns home, he feels very sad. The frog wants to cry, but he doesn't, even though he aches deep inside his gut. He wants to give up, but he doesn't. Instead, he practices and practices and practices. Then he begins to think again, and he realizes that even though the birds sing every Friday night at the big time weekly concert, they don't control it. The fox is in charge. The frog jumps over to the fox's place and knocks on his cave. Brother Fox, it's me, Frog. I want to talk to you. The fox is a fast talker and a busy worker. He doesn't really want to be bothered with the frog. Quick, what do you want? I want to sing. Sing, get out of here. Quick. Please, Brother Fox, please give me a chance. You know something, Froggy? Maybe I could use you. Why don't you show up Friday at 8 o'clock sharp, okay? You mean I can do it? That's what I said. Now get out of here, quick. Oh, the frog is happy now. He is going to do his thing. He is going to present himself to the world. Meanwhile, the fox goes around to the animals in the forest and tells them about the frog's plans. Each animal promises to be there and give the frog a little present for his singing debut. And so Monday rolls around, Tuesday rolls around, Wednesday rolls around, Thursday rolls around, and it is Friday. The frog is so excited, he bathes all day. He polishes his little green hand. He scrubs his little green fingers and his little green toes. He looks at his little green reflection in the pond, smiles and says, I am beautiful. And I'm gonna do my thing tonight. And soon it is 7 o'clock. And then it's 7:30. And then it is 7:45. And there is a frog trembling, holding on to the edge of the curtain. He looks out at the audience and sees all the animals gathering in their seats. The frog is scared. So scared that his legs won't stop trembling and his eyes won't stop twitching. Brother Fox strolls on out on stage and the show begins. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a wonderful show for you tonight. Presenting for your entertainment, the frog who thinks he's a singer. Come on, let's clap. Come on out here, frog. Come on. Let's give him a big hand. The animals clap and roar with laughter. The frog jumps out and slowly goes up to the microphone. For my first number, Now, before the frog can even put the period on his sentence, the elephant stands up, pulls down a pineapple, and throws it right at the frog's head. Ow! And the lion pulls down a bab, throws it, and hits that frog right in the mouth. Oh! The other animals join in the act of throwing things at the frog. Some of them shout and yell at him, boo, boo, get off the stage, you stink. You're ugly. We don't want to hear a frog sing, you jive turkey. The poor little frog has to leap off the stage and run for his life. He hides underneath the stage, and Brother Fox rushes back on. Okay, calm down. Just trying to out our little comic routine. We have some real talent for you, your enjoyment now. Presenting the birds who really can sing. Let's hear it for the birds. And the audience claps loudly, and the birds fly onto the stage, their heads held up high, their wings slowly strike a stiff, hypnotic pose, as if they are statues. And their stage presence demands great respect from the audience. They chirp, tweet, and whistle, causing the audience to fall into a soft, peaceful nod. Everyone is resting quietly except the frog, who is tired of being pushed around. The frog is tired of being frustrated. He leaps over the fox. He grabs him, shakes him, puts his hand around the fox's throat and says, "You tried to make a fool out of me. Leave me alone. If you want to go back out there and make a fool of yourself, go right ahead." That's just what I'm going to do. Now that little green frog hippy hops back onto the stage. He is shaking, but determined to sing his song. "I don't care if you are asleep. I'm going to wake you up. I came here to sing a song tonight, and that's what I'm going to do." And in the style of what we call boogie woogie, the frog begins to do his thing. Dooba 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 dooba. The frog bobs his head about as if he was her jazzy saxophone. His fingers move as though they're playing a big funky bass. Dooba 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 dee dooba doo dooba dee dooba doo 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 dooba doo 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 dooba 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 doo doo dooba doo 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 dooba dooba doo dooba doo boop blurp. The elephant opens one eye. He roars, and he jumps from his seat. He flings his hips from side to side, doing a dance we now call the bump. The lion is the next animal to jump from his seat. He shouts, "I love it, I love it." He shakes his body this way and that way and every which way, doing the dance we call the twist. And soon the snakes are boogalooing and the giraffes are doing the jerk, the hyenas do the slop, and the fox does the mashed potato. The birds also want to join in. "We want to do the dooba dooba too." And they chirp and sway through the trees. Tweet, 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 dooba, tweet, 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 dooba. The whole forest is rocking. The joint is jumping. The animals are snapping their fingers. They are dancing, doing something they have never done before. The fox runs back on stage, grabs the mic, and shouts, "Wow, frog, you are a genius. You have given us something new." From then on, the frog is allowed to sing every Friday night at the Big Time Weekly concert. And as my granddaddy used to say, that is how rhythm and blues were born. Dooba 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 burp.
Very good. That was quite a story.
Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed. To turn, turn will be our delight, till by turning, turning we come round right.
From The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons, it came without tags, it came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours until his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more.
We are suckers for a good redemption story. And I must say, I don't know how you follow that. I just want to say that up front. We cheer for those who started on the wrong path in life and found a way to turn themselves around or to work for the betterment of humanity instead of giving in to their darker impulses. One such example is a gentleman by the name of Cornelius Michael Anderson III, who, into the year 2000, was convicted of armed robbery in Missouri and was sentenced to 13 years in prison. Due to a clerical error, he was never told when to report to jail. He spent that time out of prison, turning his life around by starting his own construction company, marrying his girlfriend, and in general, participating in civil life. When he was scheduled to be released in 2013, that is when the state of Missouri realized that he hadn't been in jail at all. So at that point, they arrested him, and he did spend a year in prison. And due to the show This American Life talking about his story, and I think 30,000 people signing signatures saying this guy has turned his life around, they released him, and he is now a free man. In an article written by Josue Cardona on the website Psychology Today in September 2019, in an article titled "Why We Need Redemption Stories," informs us of why we like these stories so much. And these are his words. He says, "We need them to help us to see the potential in others and ourselves, to grow, to move beyond mistakes, and to not let past actions hold us back." Which brings me to one of my favorite holiday stories and specials, The Grinch. Which, by the way, I don't know if you can see, but I'm wearing my special Grinch tie today for just such an occasion. How the Grinch Stole Christmas was written by Ted Geisel, also known as Dr. Seuss, and originally published in December of 1957. And while riding a wave of other successful Christmas animated specials, debuted the animated special, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, debuted on CBS in December of 1966. There have been other adaptations, but for our purposes today, I will be talking strictly about the original story and the 1966 animated special. That special was a collaboration between Geisel and Chuck Jones, one of the best-known animators during the golden years of Warner Brother cartoons, who fine-tuned the likes of Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, and who later helped create characters such as Marvin the Martian, Roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote, and Pepe Le Pew. He and Seuss got to know each other during World War II, as both of them worked on a series of cartoons designed for the Army titled Private Snafu, and they're quite interesting. In fact, there's one about telling secrets, and the way the character speaks is very Seussian, how he talks. Now, before we go on to talk about the Grinch, I want to acknowledge some of Ted Geisel's early work, which he used very harmful racist imagery while he worked drawing ads for department stores in New York City. Later on, he worked for a socialist newspaper in the same city drawing editorial cartoons, and while he was a clear anti-fascist, or dare I say, Antifa, in the aftermath of the Pearl Harbor bombing, he also drew some racist cartoons there as well. In an article on the Insider website written by Jim Edwards in March of 2012, talks about this problematic aspect of his career, and this is what he says. Later in his career, Seuss mended his ways and drew anti-racist cartoons. He also expressed regret for his anti-Japanese views, according to the filmmaker Ron Lamothe, who made the political Dr. Seuss. The only evidence I have comes from his biographers, who told me that years later, although still recognizing its necessity due to war, he was regretful about some of his cartoons for PM and some of the propaganda work he did for the Army Signal Corps. I do think the fact he dedicated Horton Hears a Who, a parable about the American post-war occupation of Japan, to my great friend Mitsuki Nakamura of Kyoto, Japan, says something about his changing attitudes towards the Japanese, this following a trip he made there in 1953. Though, as Richard Manier, who wrote the book Dr. Seuss Goes to War, and it's a book about his political cartooning career, has pointed out, Horton Hears a Who still smacks of American chauvinism. It makes no reference to Hiroshima or Nagasaki. So this is also the main reason why his estate has decided to stop publishing some of his earlier works. And to let you all know, his birthday is in March, and I have a whole sermon complete with some of these slides from that book, Dr. Seuss Goes to War, and we'll talk more about some of those things at that time. But I wanted to make sure that I am aware of some of his problematic imagery. Now, what was it that inspired the creation of the Grinch? According to the website biography.com, in an interview that Geisel gave to the magazine Redbook in 1957, and these are the words of Dr. Seuss, I was brushing my teeth on the morning of the 26th of last December when I noted a very Grinch-ish countenance in the mirror. It was Seuss. Something had gone wrong with Christmas, I realized, and more likely with me. So I wrote the story about our sour friend, the Grinch, to see if I could rediscover something about Christmas that obviously I'd lost. And it was also pointed out that his wife at the time had some health troubles that Christmas, so it's no wonder he was distracted. Later in that same article, it quotes his stepdaughter, Lark Diamond Cates, as saying, I always thought the Cat in the Hat was Ted on his good days, and the Grinch was Ted on his bad days. So at the start of the Grinch story, we see the Grinch living away from everybody except with his dog, Max, which gives us the first clue that while the Grinch is complaining about all the noise he hears on Christmas morning, maybe he isn't the bad guy he thinks himself to be. And by the way, whenever I used to read this story to my children, I would hear Boris Karloff's voice in my head. Now, granted, over the course of the story, he doesn't treat Max very well, but despite all of that, Max stays by his side. We also see later in the story, as he's stealing all of the Who's food and decorations, he encounters little Cindy Lou Who, who was no more than 2. And yet, while he does lie to her, he keeps stealing all of their stuff, he does no harm to her. In fact, he is almost kind to her. Now, what can we extrapolate from this? He has self-isolated from the Who town and believes himself to be a bad person, and because of this, his heart or his kindness has shrunken over the years. So perhaps somewhere over the course of his life, he must have received some kind of negative feedback to where he felt everybody was better off if he was away from everyone else. Unfortunately, this is a common human experience. We believe the bad that others tell us over the good. In an article from the New York Times from March of 2012, written by Alina Tugund, titled Praise is Fleeting, but Brickbats We Recall, state, the brain handles positive and negative information in different hemispheres, said Professor Nass, who co-authored The Man Who Lied to His Laptop, What Machines Tell Us About Human Relationships. Negative emotions generally involve more thinking, and the information is processed more thoroughly than positive ones, he said. Thus, we tend to ruminate more about the unpleasant events and use stronger words to describe them than happy ones. Having better recall on negative emotions may have also given us an evolutionary advantage. In that same article, Tugund quotes Roy F. Baumeister, a professor of social psychology at Florida State University, captured the idea in the title of a journal article he co-authored in 2001 called Bad is Stronger Than Good, who says, as with many other quirks of the human psyche, there may be an evolutionary basis for this. Those who are more attuned to bad things would have been more likely to survive threats, and consequently would have increased the probability of passing along those genes. Survival requires urgent attention to possible bad outcomes and less urgent with regard to good outcomes. So we are hardwired to remember more of the bad stuff than the good, and apparently this is true for the Grinch. The result is that he is isolated from the town, and maybe the townsfolk don't understand why he's there, but if he's been acting prickly, they probably just left him alone, which furthers his isolation and his estrangement from Whoville. It's also clear from what the Grinch says that he sees Christmas as a purely commercial venture. He thinks by taking all of the stuff, then Christmas will simply go away. And here's where his redemption takes place. That in spite of all he's done, complete with robbing the Who house of everything that smacks of Christmas, despite of all the stuff he's done, the Who's come out singing and holding hands like nothing has changed or nothing has happened. When it dawns on the Grinch that it's all about community and not really about this stuff, he literally transforms. And I will say this, when you watch the animated special as he reaches his enlightenment, the light behind him changes and it gets brighter and his eyes turn from red to blue. Now, you could go deeper into why they chose blue, but he literally transforms. And it's no wonder his heart grew 3 sizes that day. We all know what it feels like to have a burden when a burden is lifted in shared community. Even when that burden is self-inflicted, when a new way forward is presented and our minds are clear of the old stuff that doesn't work anymore, it brings new enlightenment of a better way forward. In an article from the website crimereads.com, in an article titled How Dr. Seuss Gave Us One of the Most Complex, Socially Important Heist Stories Ever by Olivia, by Olivia, written in December of 2019, talks about the value of community in the Grinch's redemption, along with other famous characters' redemptions we hear a lot about this time of year. And these are her words. The Grinch's metamorphosis is notably specifically represented as a growth of heart, not a change of heart, a phrase which is associated with purely Christian symbolism. Indeed, there are many parallels between the Grinch, whose name is adapted from the French word Grinchot, and I hope I'm saying that right, meaning grumpy, and Ebenezer Scrooge, including the postmodern ubiquity of their names as monikers for the stodgy, nasty, and avaricious. The biggest is that they learn to participate in communities of love and giving rather than passive-aggressively or just aggressively leer from the fringes. Going back to the Psychology Today article we started with, Cardona agrees with this sentiment by saying, and these are his words, all these stories have supporting characters that help the hero in redemption on their journey. That's where therapists, parents, and friends come in. We see again and again as these characters struggle on their path toward redemption, but they always have a support system in place that helps them to move forward. So what is it about the Grinch that can tell us about redemption? His story tells us that being in community is a pathway to redemption. Unitarian Universalism allows us to explore these paths without fear of rubbing up against a rigid religious belief system. Indeed, we encourage community to have these discussions because someone else might have the insight you need to lift the burden that you've been carrying. I think the Grinch's story also informs us that the story we tell ourselves might not be the right one. And by keeping these thoughts and feelings to ourselves, there's no one there to tell you that you're wrong, be it about the perception of a holiday, or if you've had some kind of idea that you are the king of sinful thoughts. We've all had to endure the isolation that comes with trying to stay as safe as we can during the COVID pandemic. On this holiday season, I want to remind you all that you have a community here, whether it be at online or in person. Please reach out if you are feeling that isolation. Chances are someone else might be feeling the same way, and by giving each other space to talk about it, while it might not make your heart grow 3 sizes, maybe it will help lessen the burden. I wish to close today with the final words from the Grinch TV special, which goes like this. Welcome Christmas, bring your cheer. Cheer to all who's far and near. Christmas Day is in our grasp, so long as we have hands to clasp. Christmas Day will always be, just as long as we have we. Welcome Christmas while we stand, heart to heart and hand to hand. Our closing hymn today is hymn number 118, This Little Light of Mine.
little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
My closing reading today is from my pal, the Reverend Dr. Cynthia Landrum, and she says, "We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for each other. Our service is to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, be loving." And before we play our closing music today, it is You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, and it was written by Albert Haig. And for those of you who remember the Fame movie or Fame TV show from the early 80s, this was the guy who played Professor Horowski, who was the music professor. So I thought it was kind of a neat thing to know that he had a hand in this back in the day. So, take it away.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You really are a heel. You're as cuddly as a cactus and as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch. You're a bad banana with a greasy black peel. You're a monster, Mr. Grinch. Your heart's an empty hole. Your brain is full of spiders. You've got garlic in your soul, Mr. Grinch. I wouldn't touch you with a 39.5-foot pole. You're a foul one, Mr. Grinch. You have termites in your smile. You have all the tender sweetness of a seasick crocodile, Mr. Grinch. And given the choice between the two of you, I take the seasick crocodile. You're a vile one, Mr. Grinch. You're a nasty, wasty skunk. Your heart is full of unwashed socks. Your soul is full of gunk, Mr. Grinch. The three words that best describe you are as follows, and I quote, stink, stank, stone. You're a rotter, Mr. Grinch. You're the king of sinful sots. Your heart's a dead tomato, spots with moldy purple spots, Mr. Grinch. Your soul's an appalling dump heap, overflowing with the most disgraceful assortment of deplorable rubbish imaginable, mangled up in tangled up knots. Last one
promise, guys. You nauseate me, Mr. Grinch, with a nauseous super nos. You're a crooked jerky jockey and you drive a crooked horse, Mr. Grinch. You're a three-decker sauerkraut and toadstool sandwich.